Hey everybody, Big Toad here, and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial on building your 2D game. In the last video, we created our idle and our run and our fall flipbooks, but all we do in the game is idle. And even when we move, our image is just this one right here, idling. So in this video, we're going to connect the run animation to our character when he's moving. So when he's standing still, he'll idle, and when he's moving, he'll run. And so we've got several things we need to do to set that up. All right, let's get started, and let's make our character run just like this. Let's open up our third person and go to the blueprints, and I want to change that color. I like to have different colors. Yellow, I don't want yellow, I already have yellow. I'm going to change that color and make it easier for me to recognize it, and maybe turn that a little bit greenish. If you're colorblind, just choose colors that work for you or shades that work for you. Start by opening up your character blueprint. In one of our past videos, we put in a custom event called Update Animation. And you can see we plugged it in behind this set actor location. Now we're going to use that, and we're going to build our Update Animation functionality within this custom event. We're going to need a new variable for our flipbooks. So down here on the left, we can put our variables. And so we'll click on this plus sign to get our variable. Variable, it's a Boolean, which means it's either going to be yes or no, positive, negative, checked or unchecked. And we're going to name this is moving. This variable will be important because it'll be set to is moving or not moving, which will tell us if it's not moving, then it needs to be idle. If it is moving, then it can be running. And eventually it can also be other things like falling or jumping or some kind of attack or other movement you might need. Over on the right side under the details column, we have other things, advanced features and such we don't really need. But I wanted to show you that. We can though set a default value, but we can't do that until it's compiled. So we'll go up and compile. Now we can set a default value there, is moving, yes or no. We're going to set it to false. We're going to assume we're going to start out not moving. Now to keep our variables organized, we're going to go over here to category, and we're going to create a new category to put our variable in. This category will be used for variables that will manage and control the character movement. So let's name it something descriptive along those lines. I think we'll go with player movement. And then we move back over to the bottom left, and we can see that our is moving is now under the player movement category. All right, let's start working on this. First thing we're going to need is a branch. So let's go in there, type branch, and we can see it pops right up there. And we can select that. And we can move it into position. A little nicer and neater. Now if we go over here to the left and grab our is moving, we can click on that and drag it out and let go. And then we get an option. Either choose get is moving or set is moving. Get gets the value, set sets the value. And so we're going to set, and we're going to connect that to true, and then click the positive or the yes it is moving check mark. Then if we press Control D, we can duplicate that node, and we can pull down another one and set that. And this one will be a negative. Because if it's false, it's not moving, then it'll be negative or untrue. Now we need to set the input for this branch. How do we get our condition in there? And we need to build that next. Right click to open our menu, and let's start typing in here, get velocity. So we'll select that and add that to our blueprint. We'll position that. It's going to get the velocity or if our character is moving or not. And this little node here, we can break that node down if we want. We did that in one of our previous videos, split that, and we see those three different variables, X, Y, Z, but we don't need it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and recombine those together. That's our first step, get the velocity. Next, let's open our menu. Now we can do that just by clicking on that return value and pulling it off of it and letting go, and our menu will pop open. And let's search for vector length. And there it is right at the top. Let's click that, drag it over in place. And if I highlight them both together, I can move them around as a group. So what we're doing here is we're getting the velocity. We're getting the X, Y, Z coordinates. and we're checking them against the vector length to see if we're getting movement. And so those two nodes will tell us, are we moving or not? So let's pull our menu open, and we're going to look for a greater than. So we'll just type in the greater than symbol. There it is, greater, and we could either get greater or greater equal. We just want greater though. And there we have it. We'll drag it in place. So this greater than check is going to check to see if the vector length is greater than 0. And we can line them up like this and move them around if that helps you visualize better. You've got those kind of options, and that kind of strings things out a little much. But we basically connect that greater than check right there. Is the vector length greater than 0? If that's true, then it is moving. Then our character is moving. I think I'm going to stack things back up the way I like them, so it's more organized in my mind. It makes my blueprint a little more compact and easier for me to read. As you work in blueprints more and more, you'll find ways that you can organize yours to better function. And if I highlight all that, I can slide it around together and give me a little more space. So a quick recap, we are setting the is moving or not based on checking the velocity and seeing if it's greater than 0. And we'll set is moving, either yes it is or no it's not. That's the first step. We'll compile that. Now let's go down to our content drawer, and we're going to add a new blueprint. It's going to be a special kind of blueprint. We're going to add that in the same folder we have our player character blueprint. Let's right click and open that menu. And under blueprints, we come down enumeration. We're going to create this enumeration blueprint. Blueprint enumeration. Let's call that animation state. It's going to help us manage our flipbooks. Once we get that named, we can open that up, and it's going to look different than any other blueprint we have. It's a special kind of blueprint. Don't be intimidated by it. Top left, you'll see a add enumerator button. So we're going to add an enumerator for each state that our character can be in. Idle, run, jump, fall. And you can add as many as you need depending on the complexity of your character's movements within your game. So click to add one, and let's title it idle. And we can put a description down here if we want. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to put player standing still. And then I can go up and add another one. Click the add enumerator button, and I'm going to call this one run. And in the description, I'm going to say player running. And I'm going to add one more, and I'm just going to call it fall, and I'll add a description, player falling. Now I'm going to go with just those three for now. I may have to create another sprite book for jump. Sometimes jump and fall can use the same sprite book. I'll have to see when I get my game going to see if I want to add a jump enumerator or not. So as you can see, you can add as many different animation states as are needed. You could have shoot, you could have punch, you could have kick, whatever. You could have different ones for different kinds of kicks, different kinds of punches. So you can just fill them all up in here, and this will manage all those for you. We can close that blueprint for now. Now back in our blueprint, let's highlight all those, and we can come down here and click that, and we can put that into a selection. And now we can title this something descriptive to help you remember what we've done here. This is a great way to help you organize your blueprints and helps you remember what you did and why you did it and how it's working. So we're going to call this checks and sets is moving. Yes or no? Now, if we need to move that, we can just grab that box, and everything in that box will be moved along with it. It just helps us keep it organized and move things around as we need to. Now we need to create ourselves a function, and we can do that right here by clicking on the plus there at the function. And what a function does, it allows you to input data, and the function does its job, and it produces an output. And by putting those in functions, you can put the inputs and the outputs, and you can keep your blueprint a little more clean and organized. So let's call this function admin, for short for animation, state function. All right, and we'll compile that. And once it's compiled, now we can go over and put inputs. So the first input is moving, because we want to know if that's yes or no. This function is going to use that information to help us manage our flipbooks. Now we're going to add another one, and it'll be is falling, because that's the other state. So is moving, if it's moving, then it'll be running. If it's not moving, it'll be standing. And then we'll eventually use the is falling, which will then bring the is falling flipbook into play. So those are the two inputs we're going to need for now. So basically, as you add states within your state machine, the enumeration page we just got done with, you're going to have inputs into this admin state function. So you want to keep those in sync. And so you can add as many as you need here, just like you could in the enumeration, to keep those synced up. If we go over to the right details panel, we can click on that output button and we get a new node. And we'll have a return node. And we'll make some modifications to the return node because we have outputs to send back to our blueprint. You can delete that output that was there like I just did. We won't need that. Next, let's get us a branch node. You can either right click in the panel and pull up the menu, or you can just drag off the arrow and get your menu. So we can get a branch. Type branch in the search bar and select that and position it. This branch is going to be used to test the is moving, true or false, that we get as an input. So connect is moving to the condition on our branch. So what's going to come off our branch? What are we going to do in true, and what are we going to do with false? We are going to need a new variable that points to our enumeration that we just created for the various states of our character. So let's change the type of that new variable. I picked the wrong one at the start, and right down here at the bottom it's enum. So if you just type in enum, you're going to find that, and we're going to use the enum animation state that we just created over here. See, that's an enumeration type blueprint, and that's what we're trying to select. So the type is that actual blueprint for automation state enum. So let's change type, and we can put in there, and it's right down at the bottom though, animation underscore state, and there it is under enum animation state. Again, matches that. So that's what we're going to select for our type of variable. So there it is, variable. Now let's change that name to animation underscore state. And the purpose of this function is to actually set that state. So we're going to drag that over and drop it and get set animation state. Let's make room and bring this up here. And while we got that highlighted, we're going to hit Control D and duplicate it. And let's drag that down underneath that one. So we'll connect true up here and we'll connect false here. So this branch is going to check is moving, and the condition, it's either going to be yes or no, true or false. So if it's true, it goes to the top. If it's false, it goes to the bottom. So if is moving is yes, then idle is not the right choice. So we got to go in and select run. And if is moving is false, then idle is the choice. So now that that is set in our animation state, we need to supply that information back out of the function. So we're going to do that part now. So let's right click and open our menu, and we're going to look for select. There it is, select. Now, this is an interesting node. It has option 1, option 2. It has wildcard for a drop down box, and you can see there's various things we have in there, and there's our enum, and of course it also has some outputs. So now we've got to get this set properly so we don't forget. And as for a reminder later when we look, I think I'm going to put another set animation state in here and just set it at the bottom, because we know we do have fall and we'll eventually want to do fall. So I think I'm going to put that set in there, and I'll set it to fall. Of course, it's not connected to anything, so it won't do anything yet, but it'll be there as a reminder and a placeholder. Let's switch over to our third-person blueprint. Now, I think I need to reference my flipbook from my character, so I drug it out. I clicked over there on flipbook and drug it out and dropped it. And so now I have my reference to my character's blueprint. I also need to drag out my admin state function that we're working on. Now I'll connect those two nodes together, set with admin state function. Now we need a set flipbook node. So I'm gonna pull one of those in. So I'll drag out, get my search, and set flipbook. There it is, set paper flipbook node, and it's already stuck to that flipbook. I'm going to disconnect that one, delete it, and I'm going to pull this one because I know that's the right one. Oh, wrong node. It needs to go on the top, the target. And I'll adjust those and make them line up nice. So both of our is moving sets should be connected to our admin state function. So we'll make that connection. Now let's drag in a get is moving variable. So we'll need to go down and into our variables and select that under player movement and drag it in and drop it. And then connect that to our is moving on our admin state function. Then we need to open up our admin state function. Now in our function here, we need to get and connect our set animation state run and our set animation state idle to our return node right there. So get that done. Then we can add a new variable. And this variable will go up here and we'll type in paper flipbook. And we want the top one. Make sure you use the top one or it's not going to work. And now we have an output that is our proper paper flipbook. Now let's get select and we'll add that. Now we can connect the return value from the select and the parameter from our return node. And let's change the name on that return node from new to output flipbook. Let's go over to our variables and pull in animation state get. And it's going to get the value there and we'll put that into index. So when you click that, now you notice that those nodes above there changed because we plugged it in to the animation state. It reset those to match the order in titles that are in our enumeration blueprint. So we'll have to go set those again. So set idle and set run and set fall. But that's how it's supposed to work, so now we know we have it set up properly. So now what select does, based on what the animation state is set to, it chooses which flipbook to use. And then this function returns that value of which flipbook in the output flipbook. Now let's go over to our event graph and we can connect the output flipbook from our admin state to our set flipbook. And that should do it. Let's compile this, save it, minimize that, and take a test run. So now there's our character in the idle state, and there he is running. He looks good running, doesn't he? But when you're on the other direction, he does not turn. And we're going to do that in the next video. This has been a long enough video, and making him turn is going to take a little bit of blueprint work. So, hey, this has been the Big Toad. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope yours is working. And until next time, when we fix this guy so he runs both directions, We'll see you later. This is the Big Toad, and I am out.